The auction was held in the ghostly dining room of La Dolce Vita. It was a sad, beautiful space with faded velvet banquettes and dusty crystal chandeliers. The room was filled with a motley crew of restaurant owners, scrap dealers, and bargain hunters, all circling the lots of kitchenware like vultures. Mel was in his element. He was a shrewd, ruthless negotiator, a shark in a sea of small fish. He successfully snagged a heavy-duty mixer for a fraction of its value and a set of copper pots that made Vera gasp with delight. But then the main event began, the auctioning of a magnificent top-of-the-line Italian espresso and cappuccino machine. It was a gleaming chrome beast, a work of art that promised a world of perfectly frothed milk and rich aromatic coffee. Mel's eyes glazed over with a deep covetous lust. He had to have it. The bidding started. Mel, cool and calculating, entered the fray. He used his secret signal, a subtle scratch of the nose, to indicate his bids. The price climbed. It was a tense back-and-forth battle between Mel and a slick, well-dressed man who owned a chain of trendy downtown cafes. The price went higher than Mel had anticipated. He started to sweat. He looked at Vera, ready to give the stop signal a tug of the ear. But just as he was about to do so, a fly drawn by the lingering scent of stale cannoli chose that exact moment to land on the tip of his nose. Without thinking, Mel swatted at it. Vera, ever diligent, saw the gesture. To her, a swat was just a very, very enthusiastic scratch. Her hand shot up. $500, the auctioneer boomed, acknowledging Vera's bid. Mel's jaw dropped. The other bidder, seeing the insane price, shook his head and backed down. "Sold," the auctioneer cried, banging his gavel. To the lady with the very excited boss, Mel had just spent his entire emergency fund and then some on a cappuccino machine. The ride back to the diner was silent and tense. Mel drove his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Vera sat in the passenger seat, humming nervously to herself, still not entirely sure what she had done wrong. The machine was installed in a place of honor on the diner's counter, a gleaming monument to Mel's ambition and Vera's misunderstanding. For 2 days, it sat there unused. Mel didn't know how to operate the complicated array of knobs and levers, and he was too proud to admit it. Finally, Alice, unable to stand the silent chrome elephant in the room, took matters into her own hands. She found the instruction manual, a document written in a dense technical form of Italian, and with the help of a translation app on her phone, began to decipher its secrets. For the next week, the diner was transformed into a barista training camp. The air was filled with the hiss of steaming milk and the aroma of burnt espresso. They went through gallons of milk and pounds of coffee beans. Their first attempts at cappuccinos were disastrous, producing beverages that were either watery and bitter or a terrifying volcanic eruption of foam. But slowly they began to get the hang of it. Alice, with her steady hands, became a master of the perfect microfoam. Jolene, with her artistic flair, learned to make delicate hearts and leaves in the latte art. Even Vera, after a few initial mishaps involving an exploding milk frother, developed a gentle, if slightly wobbly touch. The customers were intrigued. They started ordering the new fancy coffees, a little taste of La Dolce Vita in the familiar comfort of Mel's diner. The machine, the symbol of Mel's disastrous auction adventure, was becoming a surprising success. One afternoon, as Mel watched Jolene expertly craft a perfect 3-tiered macchiato, a slow, grudging smile spread across his face. He walked over to Vera, who was wiping down the gleaming chrome. "You know, dingy," he said gruffly, "that was the best bad bid you ever made." Vera beamed her face, lighting up with a joy as warm and comforting as a perfectly made cappuccino. The diner, as it so often did, had taken a mistake and through some strange, chaotic alchemy, turned it into a triumph. It was the art of the deal, Mel's diner style, a little bit of ambition, a lot of chaos, and the unerring ability to find the treasure in even the most accidental of purchases. Part 17, The Ghost in the Machine. Henry, the telephone man, was a creature of analog habits in a world rapidly turning digital. His life was a quiet composition of copper wires, satisfying clicks, and the logical traceable path of a current. He understood the city's telephone system not as a network, but as a living organism whose arteries and veins he had personally tended for 40 years. So when the letter from Ma Belle arrived, it felt less like a corporate memo and more like an extinction notice. The company was upgrading. A new citywide fiber optic automated switching system was being installed. The old manual exchanges Henry's domain were being decommissioned. The letter outlined his options: a generous early retirement package or a reassignment to a desk job managing the very algorithms that were making his life's work obsolete. He sat at the counter staring at the letter, the diner's familiar morning buzz fading into a dull roar. For the first time, Henry looked old. "They're putting me out to pasture," he said, his voice flat, devoid of its usual quiet warmth. 40 years of climbing poles, tracing lines, and now I'm being replaced by a box of blinking lights. The Diner family immediately went into support mode, each in their own characteristic way. "That's progress for you," Mel grumbled, slamming a plate of eggs down. "First they invent a chili foam, now they got phones that think for themselves. The world's gone nuts." "Oh, Henry, that's terrible," Alice said, her voice laced with genuine sympathy. "But maybe a desk job wouldn't be so bad. Think of it, no more splinters." Vera, ever the font of creative, if slightly alarming solutions, chimed in. "You need a new hobby, something to occupy your hands. Have you ever considered macrame? Or perhaps taxidermy? I saw a kit online." An immediate, unanimous no from everyone in the diner put an end to the taxidermy suggestion. Henry just shook his head, a deep, weary sigh escaping him. "It's not about the splinters," he said. "It's about knowing things. Knowing that Mrs. Gable's line hums a little when it's about to rain. Knowing which wires in the old downtown exchange get temperamental in the summer heat. That's not in a manual, it's in here." He tapped his temple, and now it's useless. As if to mock him, the diner's wall phone began to ring. Alice answered it. Mel's Diner. She paused, a confused look on her face. "Hello, anyone there?" She hung up. "That's weird. Dead air." Over the next few days, the phantom calls became a regular occurrence. The phone would ring at random, frantic intervals. Sometimes it would be dead air. Other times, a strange series of clicks and static, like a conversation in a language of pure electricity. The phenomenon wasn't limited to the diner. The Sizzle Shack's online ordering system began sending out nonsensical orders. The Blue Note's phone lines were so jammed with phantom calls that they couldn't sell tickets. Phoenix was being haunted by a ghost in the machine. The phone company sent out their new team of technicians, a group of bright young kids who spoke in a language of acronyms and algorithms. They would descend on the diner with their laptops and diagnostic tools, tap on keyboards, and declare the problem a temporary network anomaly. They treated Henry with a kind of polite condescension, the way a young doctor might treat a folksy herbalist. They dismissed his old schematics and his talk of line noise and signal bleed as relics from a bygone era. Henry, meanwhile, grew more and more withdrawn. He'd sit at the counter, a silent observer of the technological chaos, a Cassandra whose prophecies were being ignored. He felt like a ghost himself, a remnant of a system that no longer existed. The crisis reached its apex on a Friday night. Every phone in a 10-block radius began ringing simultaneously and wouldn't stop. The city's new billion-dollar automated system was having a full-blown nervous breakdown. At Mel's, the incessant ringing was like a form of torture. Mel, his nerves frayed, finally ripped the phone from the wall with a primal roar. In the middle of the cacophony, a young, frantic-looking man in a phone company polo shirt burst through the door. It was the supervisor of the new tech team. He made a beeline for the counter, his eyes wide with desperation. "Henry," he said, his voice a plea, "we can't find it. The diagnostics aren't showing anything. It's like the system is chasing its own tail. We need your help." For the first time in weeks, the fog of despair seemed to lift from Henry's eyes. He didn't say, "I told you so." He simply nodded, picked up his old worn leather tool bag, and followed the young supervisor out the door. He led them not to a blinking server rack, but to a manhole on a quiet side street. With a grunt, he pried off the heavy cover. Down in the darkness, amidst the sleek, modern fiber optic cables, was a thick, ancient-looking bundle of copper wires, a forgotten artery of the old system. "The new system is perfect," Henry explained to the bewildered young techs, his voice echoing in the underground chamber. "It's so efficient it can't account for the ghosts." He pointed to the old copper trunk line. This was supposed to be disconnected, but it wasn't. It's still carrying a faint residual charge from the old exchange. It's creating a feedback loop. The new system hears an echo, thinks it's a call, and tries to route it. But there's nothing there. It's a ghost calling itself. It was a problem that no algorithm could have detected a flaw that existed in the physical world in the history of the lines themselves. It required a human memory, a deep institutional knowledge that couldn't be programmed. Back at the diner an hour later, the silence was blissful. Henry sat at the counter, a slice of Jolene's specially baked victory pie in front of him. He was no longer a relic, he was a legend. The following Monday, a package arrived for him at the diner. It was from the phone company. Inside was a set of new business cards. They read Henry Legacy Systems Consultant. The company had created a new position just for him. His job was to be the bridge between the past and the future, to teach the new kids the secrets that only the old ghosts knew. He slid a card across the counter to Alice. A slow, quiet smile spread across his face. He had found his place in the new world, not by adapting to it, but by reminding it of the indispensable value of the old one. The lines of communication he had proven were about more than just technology. They were about connection memory and the irreplaceable human touch.